Alrighty, we need to go ahead and clean our carb and get this thing ready to go back on. First thing I'm going to do is take off the fuel line because this part is just so super stiff. It's just rough to work with. And we want to get a new one on there so we don't have this line being such a problem. So we'll set that aside. We need to make one about the right length for that. We're going to just leave that on. It's not going to matter. We're going to leave this on because it really doesn't matter either. But we are going to pull the slide out of it and all the stuff out of the float bowl. Also, we have our low speed screw that we're going to pull out as well. We need to make sure that the ultrasonic cleaner can get in and clean as much as it possibly can. Alrighty, we got some tools. Here we go. Let's pull the slide out of this sweetheart. Now I already cleaned off the outside of this with the parts washer because this was a big fuzzy muddy or big fuzzy messy thing. Pull the spring out. Pull our slide out. Let's give it a quick check to make sure we don't have any holes in our diaphragm. It all looks pretty good. Needle looks good. I'm not expecting this thing to be super dirty. I'm just not going to go all the trouble putting this thing back in without making sure that we don't have any other problems. But it most certainly will not hurt to clean this sweetheart out. We'll pull that screw out when we take the bowl off. Now let me know down in the comments, is this something you would do? We rebuilt the engine. We know it ran before, but would you go through and clean the carburetor before you put it back together? I know for no longer it takes me to do it, I certainly would. We're missing the plastic piece that goes in here, the slosh guard. It's just not here, so we have that for sure. I don't have one, so it's going to go back without one as well. So pull the float out, get our gasket off there and keep it in good shape because we'll reuse it. There's a rubber plug that sits right there. Then we have a couple of different jets here. We have our slow speed jet. Pull that baby out. Looks like a normal key and slow speed jet. Now on this one, I'm going to grab it with some pliers and just take out the emulsion tube with the main jet. Keep it all as one piece. We'll set that aside. Then we'll take out our pilot screw. Let's see how far it's screwed in first. Half, 1, half, 2, half, 3, really. Half, 3.5 turns. Well now, that's quite a bit. Pull that baby out of there. Tip looks like it's in good shape. Get our spring out of there. And we're also going to have a couple other things down in there as well. We're going to have a washer and also an O-ring. I got it flipped over. See if we can get it to come out. There we are. There is the washer and the O-ring both stuck together there. So we know we got everything out of that hole. Now we also have a needled jet sitting down in here. See if I can push it out. It's kind of hard on my fingers. Let's use the back side of this. See if we can get it to move. And it did. That's a little bit farther. See if we can take our crooked pick here and poke this on out. Nope. A little smaller screwdriver than that. I don't want to damage the carb body. There we go. That's the little piece we're getting out of the carb. And let's see here. Yeah, that's pretty much torn down. So let's go ahead and stick this into our ultrasonic cleaner. All right, we got our ultrasonic cleaner. We got the carb body down in here. This thing is currently running at 50 degrees Celsius. And Celsius is what it likes to do, so that's what it's on. Probably its country of origin. Now we got a basket here. We got our main jet and emulsion tube in there. We'll throw in our pilot low-speed screw, our pilot jet. And we'll go ahead and throw the float in here, as well as the float needle. It can go in there as well. The little rubber stoppy thingy that goes inside the carburetor. And we're going to go ahead and throw our, let me get the screws out of that, our cold start plunger in there. And our jet needle. That'll pretty much do what goes into here. We'll close that baby up. Get it somewhere near how it goes. And go ahead and drop this in there as well. Right there, and our slide. It can go in there and sink. And that pretty much does it for our carb parts that go inside the ultrasonic cleaner. We have this thing set to run for about 10 minutes, so bada bing. There we go, zippy zap. Alrighty, our 10 minutes has passed. Always lift it over like that to let the water drain off of it. And then, let's see what we got. Now I'm gonna pull all these parts out and just set them in a pan. I'm using a not super clean drain pan, but it'll do the job. All right, we'll set this back in. Close her up. Turn the power off, because that thing will suck some electricity. I'm going to go in the house and rinse all this off, and I'll be right back. All right, we got our cap on the top, and let's go ahead and check this to make sure that we got a good seal in there. And all we have to do is apply air pressure to the top, and it'll lift our slide if this diaphragm is in correctly. If it's not in right, it takes a lot more air to lift it. And that's all there is to that. It is in right, and it lifts like it should. That's one carburetor ready to go back on the machine. So once we get the engine put in, we'll slide this baby on there, and all will be good with the world. That's the carb. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and put our stator on here. And I'm just going to grab a 10T handle and go around these and make sure they're about as tight as I want them. Now we can go ahead and put this back in. Make sure that O-ring's in there. There we go, and I'll check the torque on that a little later. All right, this engine is pretty much ready to go back in our bike. Whoopsie, too far. Overall, these are pretty stinking easy to get in and out compared to a lot of four-wheelers. All right, we got to get our drive shaft hooked up, but we'll go ahead and get this set in place, and then we'll worry about that. That's getting close. Yeah. We got to get our drive shaft started before we do anything else. One thing we forgot to do is to put these on. So I'm going to run these 2 screws back out, put that on real quick. Wasn't really a good way to film putting that drive shaft on because it's down in a boot. But you just line up the splines and throw that sweetheart together. There we go. That in there, that in there. 2 silver shorts. Oh no, those are super longs. There's one of the long ones. There's the other one. Now we're going to ratchet back after it going the other way. Isn't that much prettier? This also keeps the heat off your leg. It's not just for pretty. Let's go on the other side and we'll put the other one on. Alrighty, next we're going to deal with the motor mounts. We're going to get those back in there. I got to get this inside of there is step 1. This is pretty oil soaked, but it's still going to do its job okay. So I'm going to find my pry bar. Pry bar found. Lift this up and stick this in here. Should have done this before I hooked up the drive shaft though, just so you know. Let's pull that seal off there if we can. Yeah, we can. Then we'll set this on here. Get that back in there. Kind of wiggle woggle that into place, and then put the seal back in here. Kind of like that. Then one of these goes on each end. That spacer or collar that goes through there. Like that, and then this spacer goes in front. So let's make sure our drive shaft's still hooked up. It is. We'll work that to the back. So should have washed this thing before I started. This needs to go this way to get that bolt to go through there. A little persuasion might be in order. It's not going to take much once I get it lined up. It's getting there. There we go. Didn't take much at all. Now we're not going to tighten this down until we get the other one in and the top mount on. So let's go around the other side. I'm going to figure out a way I can keep that brake pedal and my arm in the way well enough you can't hardly see a thing. Now this one already has the spacer in it. All we need to do here is bop this up and I think move it forward a touch more. And slide that forward a touch. Then we can slide this spacer in here, and we'll have to lift the motor up anyway. There we go. Now we can go ahead and set this back onto that collar and have all that ready to go. And then we can slide this in place. Spacer on the other end. Can't tell you how much I wish I would have washed this thing. Get that close. Grab our bolt. Get it started. Lift our engine up just a touch. There we go. That one's in. Start our washer on there, or a nut. There is no washer down there. And then we have a top mount. The top mount goes right here off the head. So I'm going to grab it and we're going to go ahead and mount it up. This sweetheart goes in here just like this. And then the bolt goes through it. It gets its very own nut. Hard to believe. I think that's the wrong one. Nope, I reconvinced myself it's correct. I thought it was an exhaust one. Oh, boy, I got this completely butt backwards. Goes like this. Bolts in, nuts on. Then we need to line those up, and there's two bolts, two 8mm bolts that go through here and attach this to the cylinder head. Wow, it started. Didn't think it was going to. Didn't reckon. What am I saying? Feels good. Feels good is good. There we go. Might as well do the bottom ones while we're here. The engine is now setting where it's going to be. So we can go ahead and tighten all these up. Feels pretty good. There we go, that one's tight enough. All right, off camera, because there wasn't a good way to film it, we went ahead and got our starter hooked up, our grounds hooked up, our neutral wire hooked up over here, and then also our stator wires and our charging wires, the crank position sensor, source coil, whatever you want to call it, and also our charging wires are all hooked up. We got all those ran, and there really wasn't a good way to get that on camera, so you just have to use imagination and give me just a little bit of trust that all that was done. So, with that said, all that stuff done, we can go ahead and see here, get our shifter put on. We got to hook up our oil lines, and we're not just too far away from trying to fire this thing up. Exhaust would be good, crankcase breather, airbox, carburetor, oil lines, oil. Yeah, we're not that close at all, but we'll give it a shot. We'll be there. Now there's two oil cooler lines on this, and this is one of them. There's another one on the other side, and their O-rings feel like they're in pretty good shape, and they're super simple to change, so I'm going to roll the dice on those. I got some of these, but then I ended up using them inside the case on the oil passages to the back cover. Actually, to this cover. We pulled this cover off and checked the clutches in this thing while we had it out. Never an easier time. And that all looked pretty good. So let me grab me a 10mm wrench and we'll tighten this up, and then we'll go to the other side and do it. There we go. All right, the other one hooks up right here, slides in. Bolt goes underneath them. And that will get our oil cooling lines hooked up. Luckily, this is air and oil cooled, so once we get oil in it, we don't have to worry about putting any coolant or anything in it. Because it cools with the oil and also air cooled. So yeah, kind of self-explanatory, I guess. All right, we've got our shifter put on. Got our shifter installed. Going to put a clamp onto our carburetor mount there. Then we're going to put this up here and go ahead and get our throttle cable started, and it's happy home. We hope it's happy. Get the throttle cable select set about right, and tighten down the lock nut here. Yeah, I know, you probably can't see a thing. And then, I'll set our choke in place. This has super fine plastic threads. So you want to get it about straight when you're starting it. Now don't go torquing that down real tight because it just don't need it. We just need it snug. Just a little past finger tight will do that thing all day long. Slide our boot down, get it hooked over there. Now then, for our next trick, we'll get this carburetor to go into that antique boot. She's a toughie, I can tell you that right now. We're going to give her a shot of some silicone spray. And we're going to try to shove her on there. There's one click. There's two. And that's on there. I need to tighten that up from the other side. So I'll tell you what, you just stay here and watch, and I'll tighten that sweetheart up. Pull that down to where it feels good. Alrighty, we'll set our air box in here. Get it slid up on our carburetor. See if everything else kind of lines up. Looks like it does. Cool. All right, we got her fired up. She fired right off. I thought I was recording, but I guess I wasn't. But anyway, we have an exhaust leak back at our connector between the header pipe and the muffler. But otherwise, pretty darn good. Not too bad. We're just letting her warm up for a few minutes, and we'll recheck the oil, see if our transmission works. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Back to neutral. There's reverse. Yeah, not too bad. I wonder if it'll stop when it's in gear. It does, but I gotta tell you, that rear brake is terrible. Probably ought to look into that. We also have our front wheel bearings are loose on the right side. The left side seems to be okay. So we're gonna swap those out. But hey, we got it running. Here's Charlie. He's our shop dog. He's a good boy. Okay, we got this thing running, but now it don't stop. And I don't like sending stuff back home, it don't stop. So let's check out the brakes. Whoops. Got to go the right way. Looks like somebody's been here not too long ago, but it don't look like they've been there very soon. So let's get a wrench to take that off, our cotter pin out, and an 8 to whiz bang all those out. Look at that, first try. Wow. It's a 30, by the way. Wrong way again. There we go. That's off. Pull our hub off. Looks kind of oily greasy. Doesn't look too bad. I'll get a screwdriver and kind of work that off there. There was a couple of pry points. One of them's right here. Kind of work that off there. Now, there's a pile of stuff in there, but not too bad. Now we got to get this drum off here. Sometimes I'll pull off. Sometimes I don't like to so well. I think I need to back these off about a mile, and then it might get better. This is the parking brake cable. It goes up to the handlebar. So we can go ahead and get this one off. I'm sure we got to take this. Well, this moves pretty easy. Look at that. I figured this thing would be hung up in the case. All right, let's try to get the drum off now. Well, it starts. See if we can work this sweetheart off here. Oh, goodness gracious, look at that. Maybe. Oh, yeah. It don't look like there's much wrong in there. She sure wouldn't stop for nothing. Ah, there's part of our problem. Yeah, we got a cable hanging up. Well, let's see if we can lube that back into shape. Don't think we're going to because it's hanging up again. Alrighty, let's go ahead and run this one off to get it out of the way. Yeah, I'm surprised. These brakes look pretty good in there. They usually don't. Get a barrel out of there, spring off of there. This one out of the way. I'll run this one back on a few times. Now then, do that just so I can get it all over my hands. Well, a little lube makes a big difference. This is weird because it's usually the cable that goes up to the handlebars that causes the problem. Get our spring off there. Run that up there. All right, let's take it loose at the front end and see what we can do with it. On these Hondas, a lot of times this will be hung up too. If the rear brake doesn't get used much, that will seize in there. This one's already had the bushing taken out of it, obviously by as loose it is. So it's never going to freeze up again. This cable, on the other hand, this all looks pretty good in here, so I'm going to set it back together. That cable is just not going to survive. I'll have to get one of those. But I'm really surprised this looks as good as it does in here. Yeah, that should work once we get all our cables fixed. I'm pretty happy about that. Of course, I'm about 1/8 of a hole off. Because, you know, why wouldn't I be? Might as well just start over. I think this time I'll start a bolt to align this a bit. Yep, that'll do. Need to wipe the dirt off this. Yep, no need to take that apart. I thought that was going to be full of dirt and water and everything else because the vent lines broke back there. So I thought for sure it'd be full of junk. I was wrong. We'll leave the tire off because it's going to be way easier to get back to this with it off. But we're going to get a short brake cable to put on there. Yeah, that's as far as we can go for now with the rear. Gotta try not to hurt that seal too much. There we go. Wow. Wonder if these bearings or that hub's just wallowed out. Pull that O-ring off there. Yeah, there's our looseness right there. That bearing is loose inside there. The bearing's kind of junk too. It probably started locking up and caused that to happen. Good news is we have new bearings. Guess what? I'll make sure those move while we're here. That one does. Not sure that one does though. Yeah, it does. They'll move. We got to adjust those out a mile. All right. We got a spacer to put in here. Put our bearing in. Put our O-ring on. I think that'll do. I always buy the long ones because I can always cut them off, but I can't always make them longer. Now we're going to adjust this brake up on those adjuster wheels we saw earlier, and it's going to be really tough to show that, so I'm going to get that done. Well, we got this sweetheart running, and it does run pretty darn good. The engine sounds good. However, we do have an exhaust leak in this thing. We will take care of that. Try to take care of the brakes. The front brakes, we got them. They're great. The rear brake, we're going to have to get a cable for that one because the cable inside is frayed and it's catching on the housing. So no matter how much lubing we do on it, it's only going to get better for a short time. And I don't want to set something up for failure like that. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and make sure you subscribe to Raymore Repair. I really appreciate it. Like the video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for watching once again, and God bless.